From Shine Cancer Support, this is
Not Your Grandma's Cancer Show.
This is not your grandma's cancer show.
Hi, I'm Tatum, and today we're diving into hormonal disruption with the woman behind the organisation Menopause and Cancer, Dani Binnington. And for some people, the effects of menopause can actually be harder than chemo and last way longer. Plus, with all this mainstream attention on menopause, it's now a really fast-moving field with so many new products and research finally coming out, which is why I'm so happy to have Dani here. So let's get into it.
This is not your grandma's cancer show.
Not Your Grandma's Cancer Show.
Welcome, Dani.
Hello, and thank you for having me. It's a pleasure.
Oh, well, thank you for having me on your podcast as well. I so enjoyed it. You're a fabulous interviewer.
Thank you so much. And I hope we will get to talk about everything that lies in between and what I have learned from my own cancer diagnosis when I was 33 to now hosting the Menopause and Cancer podcast, and the wisdom I want to pass on from all of these amazing doctors that is out there, so everyone knows they have options too.
Brilliant. And I have loads of questions about you and kind of where it all started. But if we could begin just by you telling me, what is menopause and cancer and what kinds of support do you offer?
So Menopause and Cancer is a small support organisation. We're a not-for-profit, and we aim to support every cancer patient with ovaries who is in treatment-induced menopause or is facing menopause after their cancer diagnosis and they don't know what their options are. So we know that chemotherapy, radiotherapy, surgery and hormone treatments can catapult people into the menopause. And currently, there is no real help or signposting within any cancer services. I made the own experience when I was 33 and then later 39. And then I wanted to learn from others of how they were managing menopause after cancer. But actually, everyone was echoing what I was experiencing. And they said, I also have no idea where to turn to for help. This is harder than most of my active cancer treatment together. I don't think I have any options. I can't have HRT. I can't do anything about my symptoms. And so I set out to initially bring experts in to speak to my community that I have then built. And then I hosted the Menopause and Cancer podcast, but I always knew that wasn't enough. So I founded the first and world's only not-for-profit organisation dedicated to this group niche of people.
Oh, brilliant. So many questions, but tell me, what was going on in your life when you were first diagnosed?
I was a very busy mum of 3 toddlers. My twins were 2 and my eldest daughter was 4. And I just thought we're going to get to the stage where I might start to sleep a little bit. We never slept. We had years of no sleep. My twins were prem, so they were born when they were tiny, tiny, tiny. I had them in hospital for a long time, and it felt like we were looking at the light at the end of the tunnel when I was diagnosed with my triple negative aggressive tumour. And like so many other cancer patients I've met, I was so grateful for all of the treatments my doctors gave me. And at the end of my active cancer treatment, when I was then kind of like signed off to just have checkups, that's when I think my life really started to fall apart. And my periods did come back. So the first time I experienced menopause was temporary in my case, because my periods came back after chemotherapy. And I kind of thought that maybe with regaining my periods, my life would get back on track, but it didn't. It was a little bit derailed for a long time, actually. And it took a long time to put my house back in order.
3 young children and no sleep for years, and then you get a cancer diagnosis, and then you're thrust into menopause temporarily, which, you know, for many people means more, lack of sleep. How were you even beginning to process all of that?
I think, and I'm not sure if this resonates with anyone listening today, that initially as a family, we just went into survival mode. And you and I spoke about that when you joined me for an episode on the Menopause and Cancer podcast, didn't we? We spoke about the nervous system. And I do think my nervous system was flat, it was empty, my whole body, I had nothing left to give. I was so tired just getting through. It was probably a really good opportunity for cancer to invade my body at that time, because probably my defense mechanisms weren't there, and I was tired and exhausted all the time. I was definitely running on empty. And then it was like someone put me onto the escalator and I just went along with it. I didn't think very much. I didn't question too much. I wanted to be the good patient. I received my treatment very gratefully, but I didn't want to ask much. The best way for me was almost to put the blinkers on and to get through. And when I was then spat out the other end and I had more questions and nowhere to go with these questions, I became a little bit more empowered. But I was lucky. I have a mother and a mother-in-law who, one ushered me to counseling and the other one ushered me to yoga, and they helped me put the foundations and starting points in place for me to recover and heal. And I know this is going to be very different for everyone listening here today. We all do different things. I don't think there is a right or a wrong, but it's definitely a journey, which isn't a great word, is it? But everyone explores maybe their healing modalities themselves at the right time.
But there's something about that I hear so often, which is the just getting through and being a good patient. And I think there's something about that survival mechanism that kicks in, which can make it so hard to ask questions. So when we think of like the fight, flight, freeze, submit, fawn, I think part of the fawn response is, I'm going to be good, I'm going to do as I'm told, I'm going to be the good patient, and I'm going to get through this. But it's quite a passive, very useful. All of them, there's not a right or a wrong, like you were saying. All of them are very useful. But then you kind of do need a little bit of shepherding, because your whole mechanism is to kind of go with the flow, befriend what's going on around you, kind of make everything okay. And so can you tell me a little bit more about that kind of need for shepherding and why that's important, that it isn't just entirely self-driven, that sometimes there's something on the outside?
I think it's really important to say the onus shouldn't be on the patient. And I really want to make that very clear, especially when we talk about how to manage menopausal symptoms after cancer. I can really only speak to that as the founder of our not-for-profit organization or as a patient from my own experience. But I carried with myself a lot of self-care burden for many years, thinking only I am responsible to help myself feel better in my quest to repair and heal after cancer and manage my menopausal symptoms. But the onus shouldn't be on the patient. Now, in much of our workshops, we run online and in-person workshops or get-togethers or retreats, we really want to empower our community to become a difficult patient. And the difficult patient isn't the person who is angry or demanding. No, the difficult patient is actually, I explain, become difficult for yourself, not to manage the system. But initially, I think when people are diagnosed with cancer, or it was, for me, it was like this. It felt like I was visiting a new city and I had to find my way around the sites, but no one gave me a map and I couldn't look on Google Maps. And so you knew it was out there, you knew where the sites were, but I didn't know how to get to them. Now, as an organization, we're very passionate about helping people to navigate the medical system, which is different for all of us. Sadly, there's postcode lottery involved. We have patients from all over the world that come and access our services. But it's important to understand that there is a roadmap to getting better support within the national health system or within the private sector. And you need to almost be a bit more difficult for yourself to try and really move forward within those systems. And then it's also good to become difficult when you're ready to ask difficult questions, because much of what I hear is it a trade-off for having survived cancer? I get that question all the time. I feel X, Y, and Z. I have all of these menopausal symptoms, hot flushes, sleepless nights, genitourinary syndrome of the menopause. I've got dry vaginas. People feel so broken. And when the menopause goes on and on and on, they often say, well, I've got nowhere to turn to. So it means the only choice I have is to put up with it. And that's when I'd like to encourage people to think, if you are a bit more difficult about this now for yourself, Also with your doctors, what would you ask for and what could you do to try and move forward so that we don't feel like we're stuck? Because one thing I want to say to people, you're never stuck. Your symptoms might change. You explained that to me, didn't you? The way you want to manage them will change. And we have to be very open-minded and check in with ourselves every few months and see what's going on for me right now. What do I need help with? What can I do for myself? And then be a bit more difficult in going after it.
I want to bring you back to that term broken. That's something that really, really resonates with me. What do you think is the effect, either that you've experienced or that you see with a lot of the people that you work with, of feeling broken?
We have identified 3 big areas of problems when people talk about managing menopause after cancer, and each one of them breaks us a little bit more. The first one is people say, I had no idea this was going to happen to me. None of my doctors said that this pelvic radiotherapy, for example, is going to shut down my ovaries. Or many people say I've been prescribed tamoxifen or aromatase inhibitors, medication to keep my cancer at bay. They kind of said it might give me symptoms, but no one said these menopausal symptoms can be so bad. And so that makes us feel that the problem is just with us because we haven't had the adequate preparation. So we then think the fault is with us. We then think it's our responsibility to fix it, and we don't know where to go. So it kind of like breaks us, I would say, in bits and pieces. And when this goes on and people don't show up and try and help you figure out what your options could be, because there are plenty of options, hormonal or non-hormonal options, then this feeling of being broken just gets compounded by all of the debilitating symptoms. Some of the symptoms that are to do with that hormonal decline after cancer treatment will improve maybe over time, but others won't. They need treating. They won't get better on their own. And so people feel in a broken body. And when we feel in a broken body after cancer, when we kind of thought after cancer treatment the body will heal and feel better, when that doesn't happen, we feel very much let down and frustrated, and it's upsetting.
Yeah, absolutely. And so many people don't understand that. I had a really good friend of mine just recently who I have at length talked to about this subject and about the fact that I had my ovaries removed and didn't have any HRT. And now that she's going through it, she turned around to me and went, sorry, what do you take for yours? And I was like, nothing. And the look of horror on her face as it like sank in that, you know, it's been this long with nothing, but now she has a frame of reference. Now that she's going through it naturally, there is this bit of understanding. So thinking of you having young children, having toddlers, did people understand that you would be going through this kind of hormonal impact?
I had no idea myself that when my period stopped during chemotherapy, this was temporary menopause. I only figured this out a few years ago when I was starting to really campaign for others in my community that I felt had no voice. And that's when I put 2 and 2 together. My real quest started when after my active cancer treatment, I was told I had a genetic mutation that will increase my risks of ovarian cancers and more breast cancer.
And how did they find that out?
It was during all of my active cancer treatment that my doctor said, given your family history and given your age and your type of tumor, let's just do genetic testing. So I went along with it. We had a lot of ovarian cancer on my dad's side of the family, and as a young woman, I thought that's never going to impact me. It's on my dad's side, but I know a lot more about genetics now. And so it was on my quest to research how to manage this surgical onset menopause that I was going to embark on that I realized I know nothing. My doctors aren't giving me any solutions. I felt it was very different to managing my double mastectomy, for example. So when I managed my double mastectomy and I planned for it, I had so many choices. It was lovely. I could choose, do I go flat? Do I have a reconstruction? even to the size of implants, whatever fitted under my skin. Will I keep my nipples or not? Is it skin sparing? Some surgeries involved putting an expander in, others a drain. I had choices. Planning for my oophorectomy to let go of my ovaries at the age of 39. No one talked to me about how to manage this as a young woman, pre-menopausal young woman. I kept saying, surely the impact on my bone health and brain health and heart health isn't great. And they said, oh yeah, it's awful. And I said, awful what? And they said, well, yes, early menopause is a negative impact on your long-term brain, bone and heart health. But no one gave me solutions of what I could do about it. Some said you can have HRT. Others said no way because of your type of breast cancer. I had either no information or conflicting information.
Yeah. Did anyone give you any information about the impact on your mortality from the menopause?
Well, I'm not going to be doom and gloom, but one doctor, and actually this was my breaking point, and I paid for a private consultation because I was looking for the answers and they weren't there. And he said to me, your risk of death from all of these cardiovascular bone related issues is going to be as high as you may be passing away from ovarian cancer if you keep your ovaries. And I thought, well, I can't win then, can I? What he failed to tell me are all the things you can do. And so what I do now and what we do at Menopause and Cancer as the organization, we manage it like I had my double mastectomy. We talk people through all of their options. So no one needs to think that managing menopause after cancer means no options just because you can't have HRT.
Right.
Because this is incorrect advice. And it might take a little time until we all get there. And it's not easy. And I'm not saying it's always going to be a symptom-free menopause experience. And I think I need to manage everyone's expectations. It's definitely harder than slapping a patch of something onto your bum and thinking you're done. But it's possible.
Yeah.
And that's all we need people to know.
Thinking about our nervous systems, thinking about that kind of going from maybe a fawn response, choices actually engage us in a way that does feel a bit more safe. We feel a bit more involved. We feel like we're taking ownership. So when there is more choice, like, you know, what you were saying about having the double mastectomy, like you kind of curated your own pathway, which is a sense of ownership, which I think, you know, comes with that understanding. But when ovaries are taken out, there is often like, you know, you could do this, you raise this, and you could do that, and you raise these risks. And it can feel in how it's presented like there are no choices, which can fuel your nervous system even more. And if there's nowhere for that to go, it often does. We turn it in on ourselves, like it's our fault. Do you see women come to you with that kind of heaviness from making that decision?
Many people come to us and they're on their knees, and some say, I don't even know why I've survived cancer. This is so tough to manage. This is so tough. And so I think if anyone is out there struggling and they think maybe my symptoms are to do with the menopause, on the menopauseandcancer.org website we have a symptom checker, and it's a free PDF that people can download and just look at what symptoms are associated with the menopause, and you can tick them off, and that might be a helpful guide to talk to your GP or your oncologist or ask for a referral to see a menopause specialist, for example, because many people really do feel going back to this being broken and very hopeless, not knowing where to turn to. And also when you think no one's talked you through options, you almost think the best option you have is just to put up with it.
Yeah.
What you mentioned is something really important, and that's like your personal belief that comes in here as well. Everyone does things differently. I could have chosen different things for my double mastectomy as a different person, and maybe decided to go flat, and that would have been totally perfect for someone else. We all do different things, and it's a little bit like that again with managing menopause after a cancer diagnosis. I think initially it's really important, if anyone is going through treatment at the moment and maybe seeking the support of your community. We know people are younger, they're in their 20s, 30s and 40s. And if anyone is listening, you're going through active treatment, it's really helpful to ask your oncologist or surgeon, is this treatment going to put me into the menopause or give me menopausal symptoms? And if yes, what may I expect or can I expect, and where can I go for help?
Yeah.
And if anyone is after that, like say months or even years after that, you still can connect to your healthcare provider. So it's important to do a symptom checker to be clear about what you think is happening, and to ask your GP to also write a letter back to oncology and say, I was treated here donkeys years ago. What are my options on hormonal treatments? I think the first thing is really important to say, could I put hormones back into my body, given the type of cancer I had and my overall health history? Because we know from our research is that many people are never contraindicated to hormone replacement therapy, and they can't access it because no one thinks about their hormonal health. And so we speak to many bowel cancer survivors and people that had leukemia and they were treated with aggressive stem cell transplants, for example. And years after, no one's talked to them about giving them their hormones back, and they were never contraindicated to have their hormones back. So the first question will always be, can I have hormone replacement therapy, especially when you're young? And if the question is no, then you will go and explore many other treatments. So your GP can prescribe non-hormonal treatments, for example. There are other medications that can help with side effects or with some of the menopausal symptoms.
And new things coming out all the time, isn't there? I mean, this is probably the most exciting time for having menopausal symptoms, in terms of that there is now becoming more understanding. I mean, look, some people are still getting, like you said, not the right information, but there is more non-hormonal options than there's been before.
The British Menopause Society, for example, has a great fact sheet. It's called Alternatives to HRT. And it's all evidence-based solutions. And what's important to say is none of these options are perfect. No medication probably ever is. No medication will ever work great in isolation. It's always great to add lifestyle, exercise, diet, stress relief into that toolkit. It's really important to think, I don't think you can pin all of your hopes onto one.
No, I mean, even if you
thing.
can take HRT, there's often a long period of, oh, this isn't quite right. You know, it often needs to be tweaked. Different ones need to be tried out. And for some people, that process can be quite a long time. There is not one size fits all or any quick fix with any of it, is there?
No. But if people downloaded, say, the fact sheet of the British Menopause Society, the alternatives to HRT, one could take that to their GP and say, can we get the ball rolling? What options are there? Some medications are being prescribed in much lower doses to what they were originally designed for, to help with some of the menopausal symptoms. And you just mentioned one that is a drug for hot flushes. And this is a non-hormonal option that many people say works wonders on hot flushes and night sweats. Their studies on cancer patients aren't out there yet, but many menopause specialists and doctors can prescribe it. It's only privately available as we're recording this, but I'm sure this is going to change quite quickly, possibly even this year. So there are more options. And depending on your belief system, I've met many people who are really keen to add complementary therapies to their toolboxes. Integrative oncology is a wonderful, huge subject that integrates complementary therapy processes and tools into a survivor's sort of toolkit. It's brilliant. We have plenty of evidence for yoga, plenty of evidence for acupuncture, for cognitive behavior therapy. And for people that struggle with bad sleep, there is a brilliant tool called CBTI, so cognitive behavior therapy for insomnia. Lots of evidence for it. I think we know up to 70% of cancer survivors still struggle with poor sleep 2 years after their diagnosis, and 70% of menopausal people as well. So put the 2 and 2 together.
Yeah.
Sleep is an issue, but there are strategies that can help, which is great. And so it's adding all of those complementary therapies, depending on your belief system, into your toolkit. And the reason I bring up belief system is because we've all been hardwired, right, to make the world the way we see it. I was raised in Austria. You might think my accent isn't quite English, but I was raised in Austria, and they are really keen on complementary therapies like herbal medication. Any pharmacy you will go to, cough syrups, lots of things. For every ailment, you get plant herbal medication in the pharmacy. And so I'm a believer that works because I was brought up with it. For many people, they would never think there is any point in that. And other people are really worried about contraindications. So depending on who you are when you are inquiring about what works, you will either think, I go for it, or you'll think, oh no, I'm worried, or you think, oh, it won't work anyway.
Yeah.
And so it's important to go with what you think is right.
And also, I think that comfort, so thinking about our nervous system and what makes us feel safe, one of the ways to sort of demystify a lot of this is that the way I view it is that when I am stressed, all my menopause symptoms get worse, all of them. And when they get worse, I get more stressed, which causes them to get worse. Because so many of the symptoms of menopause are symptoms of stress. And you know, you can't take one away from the other because it also is a stress on our bodies. So it isn't like we're causing it. It is a stress that we are undertaking, but our stress adds to it. So anything that reduces, that makes us feel a bit more safe, a bit more maybe shepherded, it isn't all on us. Anything that makes us feel that, oh, yeah, okay, I love that, this feels good, is going to have an effect on our symptoms. And that's going to be different for everyone. Like you said, you know, where we find that sense of safety, relief. For me, it also comes from yoga. I know that you're also a yoga teacher. And it's something that, like, even prior to cancer, like, I would, you know, crawl onto my yoga mat just knowing that's where I traditionally got that sense of calm, that sense of being held. Having a teacher there telling me what to do was actually part of the shepherding, part of the I don't have to do it all myself. But for someone else, it might be receiving a massage. And when I was doing my massage training, we it wasn't very scientific, so I'm just going to put that out there. But we did a dissertation on the effect of 6 massages. And I studied not all cancer related, but premature menopause. So that might have happened naturally, that might have happened as a result of another treatment, and cancer. And the responses were really incredible. And like I said, I'm not quoting this on a scientific level, but that actually taking some of that stress away reconnects us into our bodies, and that can be incredibly helpful at a time when our bodies are going through so much. Is there any type of treatment that you or complementary therapy that you haven't tried yet, that you have on your radar, something that you're like, oh, that sounds interesting, I wonder if?
I don't think I personally have left a stone unturned. My mental health was so poorly when I first came out of active cancer treatment that I threw myself into making many drastic changes. And initially I changed my diet from one moment to the next radically, the way I exercised, all of my house cleaning products, everything to do with beauty products that wasn't clean, I chucked out and I replaced. And I made many, many, many big changes. I tried IV injections and mistletoe therapy and hypnotherapy and counseling and EMDR, like lots and lots of therapies. And I think a lot of that quest initially was driven by fear of recurrence and my anxiety. And in the process of guiding other people through how to manage their own menopause after cancer, we often say less is more. And let's really look at your specific symptoms, what's going on for you right now, your current situation, what's available to you, and then work on a real specific plan. Because most people that come to us, they've tried lots. They've done this and that, a bit like me, and just in the hope that something will stick and something for you to feel better. And I know now that all of the drastic changes I made were probably not necessary. I didn't need to be quite so gung-ho and intense with everything. But it did teach me quite a few things. It gave me hope. It reassured me that I was on the right track. And over time, it reinforced that I could actively participate in my well-being, recovery and healing. And so for me, it was also a good way. I wouldn't change it. But going forward with other people, we often say less is more.
Yeah.
And we really help people to be quite strategic. Sometimes when people come with a whole list of long menopausal symptoms, from anxiety to insomnia to brain fog to all of the sexual health related symptoms, loss of libido, low confidence, mood swings, weight gain, restless legs, tinnitus, the list goes on. Many people have a whole suitcase full of these symptoms. It's kind of like tackling the two or three worst ones. And that can have a profound impact on some of the others. And yes, like you said, stress makes everything worse. We even know stress has a negative effect on our bone health. So some people that come to us and are really worried about their risk of osteoporosis because they've had menopause young, and their cancer treatment might have also played havoc on their bones, and they may not be able to have HRT. They might be very worried about their bones. So we talk them through all of the bone strategies that there are and how they can look after their bones and how they can maybe have a DEXA scan to make sure their bones are okay. But we also say, if you can't do anything at the moment because you're so fatigued and exhausted and your anxiety is stopping you from maybe going to the gym, then calming down your nervous system is a really good way of also protecting your bones a little bit. Not everyone can lift heavy weights and go to the gym and eat lots of protein. We can't do it all at once. And so we know just by doing one thing in this circle of menopausal symptoms will often have a really positive impact on many others.
Yeah.
The key is to start wisely and not like me all those years ago, a bit like throw it all in and see what sticks.
Oh, I love that, because it doesn't have to be overwhelming. Because again, overwhelming, that's just that for some people that can be really stressful. You mentioned mental health. It's not always so well known or understood how much our mental health is impacted by menopause. And one of the things that I saw when I was working as a menopause coach as part of it was some people with cancer, some people without, but on a group consultation, was that people that had depression maybe before, now their depression was out of control, or they had bipolar and they've been managing it for 25 years and now it's rearing up. That actually, and you know, some of the newer research into ADHD also shows the impact of hormones on ADHD symptoms. So in terms of mental health, if that is the thing that's making someone go, oh, I've survived cancer for this is my life, is that enough to go to the doctor with? Is that enough of a potential menopause symptom to go in with?
For the sake of being the difficult patient for everyone listening today, and I want to be your difficult patient at home if you are listening, everyone is young, in their 20s, 30s, and 40s. You don't even need to experience a physical symptom. Would I say you should go and seek doctor's help for your long-term health as well? And so even if you don't have the classic brain fog or hot sweats and night flushes, I think it might be a really good idea to check in with a GP, a general practitioner, and talk about your long-term health as well. And I'll explain to you in a moment. But in terms of the mental health, what we know from healthy perimenopausal women who are entering menopause and before their periods stop, and they've been classified as menopausal once their periods have stopped for a year. Perimenopause is this roller coaster where hormones decline. Anxiety is actually one of the most common symptoms, and anxiety gets worse for a lot of people. And on top of that, the loss of confidence, the loss of mojo, people suddenly don't enjoy doing the things they used to enjoy, life changes a little bit. But these symptoms creep up on someone because it comes over a long time, this perimenopause. Well, when you've been thrown into the menopause, and perhaps like me, you woke up from surgery, or like you, and suddenly you have none of those hormones, it's like you're being pushed off a cliff.
Yeah. So
the symptoms can be more severe. They can come on much more quickly. It's a very different situation, and it definitely needs a specialist help in many cases. When I think of who can support me through this and when does it warrant to be seeing a doctor, I think just the age of everyone listening to our conversation today should have a doctor's conversation in an ideal world. Like, I get it. I sometimes pick up the phone on a Monday and I can't get through to the reception even, let alone speak to a doctor. Sometimes my appointments are like in 6 months' time. What do I do in the meantime? I have questions, I have needs. Like, I know it's hard to get that advice. But often after a cancer diagnosis, when we've been under specialist care, we don't have good relationships with our general practitioners anymore. But I would like to question that. And I would say, try and see if anyone at your practice knows about women's health. Some GPs are great at giving knee injections and others will know about the menopause. So ask who that may be and have a little chat. We know some metabolic disease or goes up after menopause as well. And when you're young, that's unfavorable. So for example, we know some people who are on endocrine therapy, like aromatase inhibitors, for example, many women say their cholesterol levels go up. So it's basic health needs as well that your GP can help you manage. We just need to know. So it might be helpful to say, even though I'm not having loads of symptoms, can a doctor help me just make sure I'm okay? And I'm basically, have I got enough vitamin D levels? I make sure I've got those, especially now in the winter months as we're recording this. I check my cholesterol because mine has gone up after menopause, and I eat really well. It's really frustrating. Like, I do so much. My cholesterol is raised. So it's checking in on those basic needs, as well as saying, who can help me look after my bones? It's really important. And, you know, when we talk about heart health, it's important to check our cholesterol. So it's, I don't think you need to suffer a lot to be having that medical support.
Oh, I love that answer. I absolutely love it because, yeah, that's what I would want for everybody going through this. And hormones are vague and shifting, and they can, you know, especially when you have other side effects going on, the effects of treatment, it can be hard to go, what is this coming from? Where is this coming from? And I think when it comes to the mental health aspect, so many of us do kind of go, oh, well, I guess this is just something else I just need to get through. And, you know, we apply that same logic that we applied during, you know, treatment to that. But actually thinking, and I read a study recently that was saying that the number one thing that women going through hormonal disruption, so wherever they are in the, you know, sort of menopause spectrum, the number one phrase is, I just don't feel like myself. And that really stuck with me because they were trying to say to doctors, this is what people are coming in with. This is how all these little changes sort of manifest. I'm just not myself. And they put it into IJD, spelling it out. So this whole research paper had just don't feel like myself throughout the whole thing. And actually, yes, that can come into our sort of worldview in terms of thinking that everything seems darker and bleaker and hopeless. And we didn't used to be like that. And it can be hard to know, is that because I had cancer? Is that because I've been left with low estrogen?
Yeah.
And thinking, does it matter? Because actually that in and of itself is something to still be addressed.
I feel most people I meet are feeling in a really difficult situation. They have lots of symptoms. They don't know where to go. And I think it's almost normal to feel like this, given what your body has gone through. If you push people off that hormonal cliff after cancer treatment, it's normal to feel like that and having all of those symptoms. It's a natural reaction of your body. Everyone has different symptoms to different extents. Some people don't sleep at all and wake up 5 times a night. Other people wake up once a week and it's awful for them. No one should judge what the other person experiences and how much these symptoms affect them. And so it's important to recognize how different our stories are and go and get the help. What's not natural is that we haven't had the support. I think it's natural to be feeling this and have these symptoms. It's not natural that our medical system has decided to give us these treatments, for those treatments to make us menopausal, but then actually just leave us and not even talk about it. That's unnatural. And that's where I want all of us to sort of collectively be a bit more difficult, ask a few more questions, because we will influence the future for all cancer survivors. Many drugs, for example, it's happened in the past, so I know we can do this together, but I can't do it on my own. I need everyone's help. And so with some other drugs for, say, diabetes, there were lots of side effects that people and patients then complained about. This meant that the drug has changed. Research has been put, millions have been put into this drug, and there are other drugs now with fewer side effects on people's overall health. And that's exactly what we need. We need to stand up collectively. We need to talk about our experiences, share how difficult this is, how limited we feel our options and support are, so that our doctors' ears will prick up. They will then inform research, pharmaceutical companies, so that together, we can only do this together, that all parties together can change the world for all menopausal cancer survivors.
I'm in. I'm sold. Like, I want to be part of this rallying cry. And I love that reframing of, which parts are unnatural. And actually, it's unnatural to be left without support, considering. Yeah. And now there is understanding of the impact. It feels like the world just recently has woken up, to menopause as a thing. And it's always been a thing, but especially for our people that didn't get to go through it in the regular way, that are going through it early. If someone is having a hard time doing it for themselves, can you talk a little bit about how relationships are impacted sometimes by menopause?
Oh my God, I love that you asked this. And it's sad because it affects most people. And really, when you spoke about mental health earlier, this is where it also comes into as well. I think many people think that their life will go back to normal, and we're just waiting to feel back to normal, aren't we? Which is such an illusion. I constantly wanted the old Dani back for years after my active cancer treatment. But with all the changes I've made myself as well, I was moving further and further away from my old version. Yet all I did was keep looking for her. So I don't know, I really set myself up to fail from day one. Whereas this transition, this hormonal transition, but also this after a life shock or a life trauma, will never ever really be the same person, will always be a little bit of a different version. But many life impacting events happen after a cancer diagnosis with menopause, such as infertility, the loss of self, the loss of confidence, the loss of libido, and the loss of trust. And that will mean that relationships are really difficult. And I know from myself, although I feel I was in such a supported family and my husband was so supportive, we both felt very lonely. We talked, we had children to raise, and it was a very lonely experience. And we're both okay communicators, and it was still a really lonely place to be in. We have hundreds and hundreds of workshops about sexual health, menopause after cancer, where people say, I haven't had sex in 10 years. I can't imagine ever having sex again. It feels like sandpaper in between my legs. We bleed upon intercourse, so I don't even want to try anymore. People say I have no connection to my physical body, yet my partner wants sex, and rightly so, and I don't know where to go. And so there are many more challenges that can come our way with relationships, even with friendships. I thought for years no one would ever want to sit next to me at dinner parties ever again because I was so boring. My confidence was just gone. I just thought, who would want to sit next to me? No one would. I stopped drinking alcohol. Everyone was still having a right old party. And I thought, gosh, the anxiety then stopped me from going out, from going to social situations. So much changes in relationships and socializing, doesn't it?
I so relate to that feeling of who's going to want to be my friend? When for me, it was like, I feel like I'm 105 years old and I'm not relating to everyone in the stream of their life. I felt so outside of it. Obviously, I'm looking at you and you're incredibly engaging. You're doing amazing work. You're really fun, really interesting. And I think it says a lot when you kind of say, I didn't think anyone would want to chat to me at a dinner party. That actually that is such a universal, feeling in terms of lots of us feeling that way. And I wonder for, talking about that difficult patient, sometimes it's hard to muster that up for ourselves to go, actually, I deserve to, make that appointment. I deserve to reach out to that doctor. I deserve to take care of things. And I wonder for some people at some times if it's useful to think about, I might do this for the people in my life. I might do this for my children or for my partner or for my best friend or for my sister or my mother who's driving me absolutely bonkers. And is it really her that's driving me bonkers, or is it because I'm really hormonal? And actually sometimes that can be kind of another gentle way to go, because so many women I've heard have sort of said, I think I could kill my partner. And I have never felt like this before. And I don't like feeling like this. And it's a horrible, horrible feeling that actually going for the people in your life, if that's framed with you in a way that sits in a nourishing way, not that you have to do anything for anyone else, but if it feels like, oh, I could get some of my self-care from that, knowing that it does have such an effect on our relationships is another way of making that call.
I think often when people get diagnosed with cancer, the onus on support is very much on them, and rightly so. But the support for the support network needs to be there as well, because I've been on both sides of the spectrum, being diagnosed myself, and like you, also having lost people that are very close to us, to this disease. I don't actually know what's worse. Like, it's as difficult to watch someone else go through it as it is to experience it myself. That was my experience of my pain and how I hurt. And so I think the conversation should very much be on how can we support our partners, our children, and how can they access mental health services or counselling or therapy. That's really, really important. And it's always good to ask, is this the right time? I really, truly believe someone might come off listening to us today thinking, right, I heard that menopause lady. I heard that menopause lady talk about there is help out there. I'll ask my doctor. And then I would say, manage your expectations, go for it. Don't take no for an answer. Go back. It might take several appointments. It might take some time. Other people might say, oh my gosh, she spoke about lots of things. I'm going to put the lid back on. I've got too many other things I want to get done. This isn't the right time. And many people might really benefit from thinking, what would I suggest for my best friend to do, right? Would I tell him or her to go and get help, or would I tell her to suck it up and and just put up with it? It's a checking in with ourselves, isn't it? But as long as we know there are options of managing our long-term effects of menopause after cancer and our current symptoms, as long as you know that, I truly believe everyone will map out that path in between where they are now and where they want to head, because you know you have a goal and a destination and you can aim for that. And I want people to aim high, because you haven't survived this to just always feel awful. Like, give it your all, go for it, give it your all. And people at the end of the year might turn back and think, I've tried it all and I'm still not feeling 100%, but maybe you'll feel 50% better, and then we've done a great job. And yeah, if it's the right time, I'd say go for it and give it a tinker.
Yeah, I think we really deserve it, don't we? And yeah, that acknowledgement in an ideal world that every partner would also, there would be couples therapy for people going through cancer, that there would be that support. And it's not strange if it has an impact. That would be normal. And what is, hasn't caught up yet is the support structures for that. Thank you. I mean, talk about a rallying cry of, actually things can change, but also go easy on yourself. Like, yeah, maybe now isn't the time. But if you are going through something, that there is community, there are choices, and I think that is such a powerful message. Dani, if someone wants to find out more about your organisation, where do they go?
So for anyone with ovaries who's young, who's had cancer treatment, I really do hope people will now understand that some of what they might be feeling is to do to the menopause. And if they are curious, we have lots of different ways of learning and for them to explore what their next steps could be. So have a look on menopauseandcancer.org. It's our hub, our website. But some people like to learn by listening. So we have a podcast and we have 2 great episodes with you, don't we? With the Shine community, which is great. We've done a great one with you just recently. So maybe go and seek that. It's the Menopause and Cancer podcast. We're also on Facebook and Instagram, Menopause and Cancer. And for those that want more community, our Facebook group is very communicative and chatty.
Yeah.
And that's where everyone is just troubleshooting and giving advice. But for some people that doesn't work and they don't want to be that involved, and for them it might be better to go on a walk. It's maybe their way of doing things. So there are different ways of learning, and it's menopauseandcancer.org.
Thank you so much, Dani, for joining us today and for doing this, and for, keeping kind of, at the forefront of what's going on, and asking for more.
I think the episode title should be "You're Not Broken and You Deserve More."
I love that. And if you're looking for Shine, we've got loads of support about the menopause. It is a subject that comes up tons on our websites and on our Facebook groups and WhatsApp chats. So do come and find us at shinecancersupport.org. And thank you to Radio Facilities for recording and sponsoring our podcast today. Until next time, bye.
Bye.
This is not your grandma's cancer show.
Not your grandma's cancer show.